Hi, it's Gadget UK here again. I'm back with something different, a Nintendo Switch. It's not the Lite, it's the original one. It's in very good condition. It's got a screen protector on. I mean, it looks like it's chipped there, but it's just a protector, I think. This belongs to Mr RetroUnlim, well, his son, actually. So he kindly dropped it off today. I thought I'll have a quick look now, actually. And then I'll perhaps finish it in the morning, but this has been dropped in the bath. He took it straight out, and then it was kind of, I don't know, put somewhere to dry, and I think he said he'd put some rice in a bag or something with it. Now, that technique does very little, actually. Silica gel might be a better solution. Let's just see if we can get these screws out with a tri-wing screwdriver here. I'm not sure if I'm going to need the smaller one. So I got the 4 tri-wings out the corners there with the tri-wing screwdriver. You can get those from eBay. It's the same one that works with many other similar Nintendo products. So we need to remove the little screws around the outside. These ones are little Phillips ones, so a jeweler's screwdriver set is what you need. And the thing you want to do when you get spilt water on these, switch it off straight away. Do not charge it, do not power it back on, and disassemble it in order to disconnect the battery. If power is removed, you know, if you do these steps here, you can actually, if you can get into it like this and disconnect the power, it then just becomes a case of, you know, cleaning the board, drying it off, and as long as you don't power it back up while there's any moisture there, you will save the device. Now, where's the SD card? Goes it under here somewhere or something? Yeah, you've got a little slot there, look, you can see that. It's for a micro SD, isn't it? So there isn't one in there. So what I'm not sure about here is the exact process of getting in one of these. I've watched my mate Vince fix these lots of times. Anyway, we'll disconnect the rail here. We're going to need to completely disassemble it anyway, you know, the whole lot. So, and I'm just paying attention to the size of these little screws here. So these ones are slightly larger. The ones I just took out, they're a bit smaller. These ones a little bit longer. So after having removed all the screws there was a little bit of corrosion here. I've just clipped this off. You know, you kind of just pull it from the back and it pulls off there. Yeah, I learned that from my mate Vince, actually. I've just cleaned the connector a little bit. Can you see it's a bit bluey green on there? There's a little bit of corrosion on there. There's a little bit of corrosion on top, can you see? On there. But also some corrosion around this little IC here. I'll put you on macro just so you can see. We've got a little bit of corrosion around here, not massive amount. Obviously that's turned pink to show that with the water damage. There's a little capacitor here, look, top of that's a bit black. I've measured these caps on continuity, there are no shorts at all, and the ones up here. So yeah, I think there's a good chance this might be okay. You can see the corrosion a little bit here, but from what I understand this has happened recently. It's not like it was done a week ago, it's happened in the last 24 hours. Anyway, I think what I'll do is just going to clean up initially with a bit of IPA. I'm not sure we need to take the board right out, although, yeah, we'll do that ultimately. I think right now though I might just have a bit of a clean around here with a toothbrush and some IPA, and a little clean around here gently, and then just to see if it looks any better, we can maybe reflow this with some hot air or something later. We're certainly going to need to maybe do something with that cap there. So I've got a little cap of IPA here, and yeah, I'm not going to, it's not loads, there's just a little bit, and I'm just going to just get a little bit on there like that. And a little bit down here as well. I'll just have a gentle mop up here with cotton bud. I tell you what, the components are so small on this. I've got a whole new level of respect for the stuff that my mate Vince does on these, if I'm honest. I mean, you can't even use a cotton bud because if you're not careful, you'll snag something and pull it off. So I'm just removing the heat pipe here, because I think there's a little bit of corrosion here, and I see a little bit on these connectors. So, you know, I'm probably going to need to strip this right down. It's a blooming nightmare, if you ask me, the number of things you've got to disconnect. So I disconnected the speaker there. I just used a pair of pliers just to pull it a little bit, and that was proving difficult. And then just put the tool on the top, because there was a little bit of this exposed here, and it just pulled straight out. But can you see here? We've got some more corrosion looks. So yeah, I'll clean around there as well. So again, just with a tiny bit of IPA here, I just want to see if it comes up any cleaner. We'll measure the caps around there as well in a second. So let's measure those caps, find a ground point. Yeah, the ground point is good over here actually on the power connector. It's mega small, that power connector. Anyway, let's just measure these. Strange how we've only got ground connections on a few of those. It could be coupling, but yeah, you only need a ground connection one side. If you measured, say, this cap here, or that, hang on, so if you measured that cap there, you found it had a ground on both sides, short on both to ground, then that would indicate something around there is faulty, or something, a power rail or something that, you know, powers that. But anyway, it's looking all right. So I'll just continue working around this. I might disassemble it further yet. So I just disconnected this here. You just lift this little flap, can you see it, up? I think my mate Vince was saying he pushes them back down afterwards, because otherwise you can catch them and break them off, so we'll do that. And if you look at the underside of this here, can you see? Yeah, it's not going to focus very well, is it? Yeah, it's really dirty and corroded. So I'm just going to wipe over that gently with a cotton bud and some IPA, and then we will try. And if that's not, you know, doesn't clean it up, we'll try. Sorry, I know it's not focusing very well. I need a microscope really for things like this. This is so small. Yeah, if that doesn't improve it, which it isn't doing, I'm just going to use the fiberglass pen just very lightly on it. So this is the next day. I am literally just going to continue stripping this down. You've got to use magnification, you know, some of these little connectors like this, they're so fragile. They really are. I've seen Vince damage these a few times, and I'll be honest, you think, well, if you were a bit more careful you wouldn't break them, but you know what, these are so fragile, they're very easy to damage. Yeah, see, just lifting that up there, I could have almost broken that. You need to use magnification, and you need to use tools and things like this, you know, like that there. Now I would normally pull that out under magnification, just kind of, in fact it's not even easy just to get some of the tools and things into the positions you want. So I'll disconnect all these things. I've got a speaker, another little flat flex thing there. The speaker here has been disconnected. I need to do this one, unclip these, I think, unscrew this board here, disconnect that. That's just a pop-on one, I think, isn't it, by the looks of things. And then we've got these two and that. There's an awful lot of connectors, isn't there? And I think this is the like flash ROM, you know, it's like, I think it's clipped on down there, isn't it? But I'm not sure what holds it onto here, maybe some sort of sticky pad or something. So I'll try and show you lifting some of these. You've got to use something flat, a flat tool, very gently like that. Can you see that? Do not force it, because you know, you'll pull it completely out, and then we should be able, and this is not the right way of doing it. When I did it previously, I just did this here, just carefully, just ease it out. Can you see that? It's coming out, look. And I think if we sort of pull it this way a little bit, coming out, yeah, gently. So on all of these, you know, you're going to have to look clean on the underside there. I gave that a little bit of a clean last night, but anyway, I'll give it another clean, get some deoxit into here. And as I said earlier, the tip from my mate Vince here was to put these, and do this with your finger, don't use a tool like that, just carefully push it back down like that, so it doesn't get you know, knocked off when you're moving your fingers around. And you can see the one lifted here, look, so that should mean now that this comes out as well. So it's the same again, just very gently. Be mindful there are small components on here and stuff, you don't want to knock any of them off. There you go, that's come out, look. And I think it's the same with this one here, we've got a little flap there. Oh, would you see that? And again, pull this out a little bit by bit. Tweezers is the best thing. Yeah, you can see that's very dirty on top, so. And again, we might need to clean some of these up with the fiberglass pen very carefully, just inspect for damage. So if you've worked on these things before, they're probably very easy to get to pieces, but the most challenging bit I found was disconnecting that. It's literally a case of trying to lift it, you know, from either side till it pulls off. So yeah, very careful to remove that. I've not done any damage. The thing here is all okay. That flap there was very hard to lift up as well. You kind of need to do it on both sides because it's so long there. Anyway, that's that. That's looking alright, but this side here, look, lots of corrosion, and the pins in there don't look so clever. So I think with that, I might just soak that in a little bit of vinegar just for a few minutes, and then you know, get some IPA in there and blow dry that off. I might even get some deoxit into the slot there, but I think, yeah, I think that should be okay. So yeah, so a bit of moisture is obviously coming through here through the card slot end. So this should come off now. I think I've got one screw there, look. Yeah, that screw is obviously hidden, so until you get that little board out of the way, you can't get the fan out completely. I did wonder what was holding it there, you know, because I tried to lift it and I was like, oh, it's stuck here, what's holding it? Just move that out of the way. So the fan looks okay. So I need to pop off these. They should just lift upwards. There you go, like that. One's the Wi-Fi, I think, one's like Bluetooth or something, or for something like that. There we go, that's that one off. So, what's holding the board in now? Well, we've got a little screw there. Obviously these two here. Is that a screw? Yeah, and a screw there. Nearly there. And there's one up there as well. Wow, that was stressful. And again, the video connector there was quite hard. There's just a tiny dot of corrosion on there, but it's nothing major at all. Anyway, I can now soak this in some IPA, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. I am going to find a suitable container, fill it with about that much IPA, and submerge the whole board in IPA. The reason being is I don't want to remove this shielding, but what I do know for 100% certainty, you've got some BGA chips here. There's probably like a GPU and a CPU, and even this here has got BGA, although there might be some underfill protecting these things. That's where you get the corrosion. So we need to get IPA right inside and underneath everything, leave it to soak for maybe a couple of hours. I think I'll leave it for 2 hours, and then we'll pull it out and get the hot air just set to about 100 degrees and blow dry the whole board from all different orientations, and inspect and see if there's any additional cleanup needs to be done. But you can see it's looking pretty good, really. I think it's got away lightly. So yeah, hopefully there's a good chance that this will be salvageable. Yeah, so all of the suggestions out there on the internet to do with sticking it in a bag of rice and all that, it's crazy. That will achieve nothing. The key thing you need to do, if you can't repair one of these yourself and clean it like I've done, the very least you need to unscrew all of the screws around the outside of the case, unclip it as I sort of talked about earlier on, and then at the very least just get a screwdriver underneath, something very thin underneath that, and pull that up that way. away from the thing to disconnect the power, because if you don't do that, the battery is the thing ultimately that kills the board. It's not just the corrosion. The liquid damage obviously you then need to deal with as quick as possible. At that point, if you can't deal with it yourself, what I would do is put it in a plastic bag but stick a load of silica gel capsules in there, because they are a desiccant, you know, they extract moisture from the air better than rice, I am sure. That is all you can do really at that stage. But if you're prepared to go to this level and spend a lot of time in it, you know, be really careful. You do need to take your time with these connectors, because if you just damage one, that's it. It's kind of going to be game over if you damage one of these. You know, if you damage the ribbon, you know, you may need to replace a component like a screen or a speaker or something. So yeah, you've got to be very careful and patient. But then you need to get the board like this and fill it with IPA just over the level like that there, and leave that for a few hours. That on its own is probably not going to do much, you would think, but it will help move the moisture out of the way, you know, and agitate it from time to time, rotate the board around, etc, etc. I should have cleaned off that there first of all. In fact, let me just do that. Let me wipe that off, because what will happen is that will just kind of dissolve into the water. As things stand, look, it's just still there in one big lump. But yeah, clean that off before you start this step here. We've nothing lost because I'm agitating it just by virtue of you know, doing this here. And I'm going to be sticking it back in a minute, and the IP is going to go back under there again. But that's what we want. We want it to go under the ICs and between the pins and into the connectors and everywhere, because IPA will evaporate, especially when we add some hot air afterwards to flush it out. Yeah, there we go. So let's just stick that back in there, and again give it some agitation. Now, if you've got an ultrasonic bath, I know Vince does, that's even better. I'd be tempted to stick this in an ultrasonic bath, but not for very long, because the components are really small on there, and the agitation, I don't know, it could loosen something up. It'd probably be alright, I would think, but anyway, let's leave that for about 2 hours, I think. And before I forget, I'm also going to submerge that in there as well. I'm going to stick it in that way up just because I want the PCB to be nearer to the bottom. Let's just top that up because it's not quite as high as I would like. It's kind of a bit of a waste of IPA really, but anyway, it needs to be done. So the next thing to do is inspect each of these ribbons, so you can see that looks nice and gold there. If I move this one down, can you see? There's no issues on there. There is just a little mark. Let me see if I can point with the probe. You may or may not be able to see it at that distance. There's just a little mark there. So let me think about this. What I want to do is support it with something like that. So you can put a bit of pressure there, look, and then just very gently clean over that a little bit with the fiberglass brush. Yeah, and just for good measures, give it a gentle once over. That's it. Not pressure, no pressure, just very gently. And the exact same thing with all these little ribbons here. Look, you need to somehow hold it like that. I don't think you're going to be able to see that. It's just a little bit dirty again, that one. So again, just very gently, without breaking them. It's easier said than done because it's so small. Just hold it down on there, and again, just very gently. And you could wipe over it with a cotton bud with some deoxit, and I will do that as well. I'll show you that in a minute. A tube of deoxit will set you back about £7 here in the UK. But if you're going to be trying to repair and restore one of these when it's had corrosion like this, it's absolutely essential, really. It's just there on that bit. That one's dirty. So I've got my little tube of deoxit here. There's not much left in this tube, but I do have another tube. And just get a little bit on the end of a cotton bud. And yeah, I'm not sure if it's going to be in focus or not, this, but just gently wipe over the ribbon like that. And we'll do the same on all of these connectors here. And even though they don't need doing, I'm going to do them anyway. We don't really know whether the moisture's just touched some of those. We do know that this one here was adversely affected, so let's just hold that like that. Yeah, sorry you can't really see very well. Got some of the battery there. The next thing we can do whilst that's soaking is just clean the inside of the case. And there's very little, there's very little corrosion got in here. There's a tiny bit down here and some fluff, so let's just clean around there. It's mostly fluff and dust that's got into that bit there, which is no surprise, because it's the main, cavity there where you plug the charger in. There's a few spots of moisture or something got in there. I'll give it a wipe with the paper towel in a minute. Some of these bits here, it's the easiest way to use a paper towel. But in particular, this area up here, you can see, the corrosion just kind of got right into this corner here. I think we're lucky that it doesn't look like lots and lots of water's gushed in and gone into the display. So I've got a good feeling about this one. I think we might be able to get this working again. And the key is time of the essence. You get moisture in there. The quicker you deal with it, the more likelihood that it's going to be savable. And you know what? I nearly forgot. The Joycon rails are also something that needs to be dealt with here. I just left one screw on each side here just to hold these on, but I removed the majority of them. So there'll be a flat flex we've disconnected, that holds, there you go, holds the thing on. So I'm going to do the same with this. I'll just put the screw in there. I'm just going to soak it, I think. It's just the connector down here, isn't it? But I'm going to soak those in IPA as well. So it's been soaking for a period of time now. I'll start with this here. You can see some of the stuff that was on the top there has come off. So initially I'm just going to just wipe that very carefully here. Very gently, see if we can get any of that off. We can use the fiberglass pen on that in a minute to remove that little bit of stuff there. It's where the salts and things, the bubble bath and salts and the soap there have interfered with it. So I've got the hot air set to 100 degrees, got fast airflow, and all I'm going to do is just blow dry this like this. 100 degrees is not hot enough to melt anything here. As long as you don't focus too long in one area, you'll be fine. So it's looking pretty clean, that actually. I see no real issues. But what we can do is just carefully clean this here with a fiberglass pen. So we'll just extend the fiberglass pen a little bit and just give it a gentle wipe there. Can you see that looks coming off? I'm trying to be careful the way I'm tilting this so it doesn't go inside the thing. Some down that side there as well looks quite close to the PCB. We'll just get a toothbrush with some IPA now and do a bit of that. So I'll leave that now. Any bits of IPA that's still on there will come off, but you can see, we've got some discoloration there. What I'd like to try and do is maybe squash a cotton bud, get some deoxit, and just gently try and go over those contacts in there. I might be able to do the same just by scrunching up a little bit of paper towel, but not too thick. You don't want to deform the thing in any way and bend the pins and things. But anyway, that's that bit done. So next onto the main board. So if we kind of just let it drip off like that a second. What I would suggest you do if you've blow dried this off like this, don't be in a rush to test it. Make sure that you see no signs of moisture at all, and then leave it for, I don't know, maybe 24 hours before you reassemble it. IPA will evaporate fairly quickly when the board's been warmed like this, but you never know, you could still have some moisture somewhere that the IPA hasn't dislodged. You could argue that a solvent might be a better thing to use, but I'll be honest, I wouldn't like the idea of spraying WD-40 over something like this. We may need to do something additional here to clean the charge connector up there as well, because the pins in there are going to be quite tarnished, I would think. So we can now start to reassemble. I'm going to start by putting this back in place here, I think, and putting a screw in just to hold that in place. I couldn't get this side out. There's one screw that just will not budge there, and if I try and unscrew it too many times, it's just not going to come out ever. So all I've done here is get a bit of deoxit in there, and I'll just slide the Joycons in and out a number of times, and I think that should hopefully do it. So I guess you got to kind of maybe tilt it. Let's tilt it in like this here, maybe. You know, get the bottom in first, but then look, your ribbons and things need some manipulation to oh, come on, yeah, get them to play nice. And look, the antenna's gone down here, and we've lost the one down here, look. What a nightmare this is. What was that noise then? I didn't like that. So before you start screwing the screws back in, just do inspect to make sure all of these connectors are exposed and in the right places before you commit to screwing it back in. So the next thing I'm going to do here is heat the few areas that had a tiny bit of corrosion with hot air. Can't really think what else to do to this, to be honest, because something may have failed somewhere, but it also may be a little bit of corrosion still. I'm trying to cover that connector. What I want to do is reflow that little IC there. I'm not going to be able to show you all of this because I need to use magnification to see what I'm doing. Set the airflow down a little bit. It's got very low airflow. If you have too high airflow, the components are so small, you'll blow them off the board. So after reflowing things and inspecting a little bit closer, actually, I've noticed some things. Well, this area is now super clean. This area here is super clean. I capped and taped off these things just to avoid melting them. But can you see here? Look at those pins there. They look a bit weird. So I'm going to get a little bit of flux on there and reflow that. I also forgot completely to inspect around the video chip area here. And if you look at this again, it's not looking great. So I'll just go over this again with a toothbrush and I'll get a little bit of flux on there. I'm going to reflow that side of that there as well, I think. Yeah, I really don't like heating some of the stuff on this board. You know, we've got plastic connectors on the underside here. I've had to mask off the LED there, but these definitely need reflowing. There's horrendous corrosion on those three things there. I don't know how I missed it, and obviously the IPA bath didn't get it off. If you're not going to scrub it with a brush, as I didn't at that particular point, it's you know, it's not going to come up clean. Yeah, but these little ICs here are awful. Just need to clean up with IPA again. One or two areas here I've only just heated with no flux, you know, because there was hardly any damage there. It just needed a light reflow, whereas other areas, like here for example, we got flux on there because it was pretty dirty. So in all probability I think it's game over for this switch actually. If I measure the caps here, they're shorted. One of the rails has got you know, the power rails has got a complete short, and the caps look alright. It's the same down here. I'm alright, one or two of these have got little marks on them, but I can't imagine it being the cap, to be honest. Yeah, every one of them has got a short across it, more or less. So here we are soaking it for a second time. Now I spoke to my mate Vince, and he pointed me towards a video where someone had fixed one of these recently and used an ultrasonic cleaner, and that, you know, had this, almost the same symptoms. So I haven't got an ultrasonic cleaner, but what I do have is this to vibrate and agitate, which, yeah, it'll achieve almost the same thing. It's not quite the same as ultrasonic. But what it will do is agitate. I'm trying to focus on where the corrosion was, the spots of corrosion. You could see little bits come off when I did that then, actually. So that is clearly having an effect. Now there's nothing on the display. The power indicator thing shows one little notch on the battery and then it goes off. But if you look at the voltage here, it's doing what it did before, where it's a bit higher. Can you see that? 3.84? It's charging, it's going up. So I think the battery's totally flat. My mate Vince gave me some clues there that maybe the battery level is low. So you never know, it might work. It might just be a case of the battery is completely flat. So I'm just going to leave that for a bit. It does seem to be charging. Yeah, excess here if we can. So as you can see, it's working. There we go. Let's pause that. I sent this to my mate Vince because after I did the things you just seen, you know, cleaning up the board a number of times and trying to just reflow where I thought the corrosion was focused, I was seeing no signs of life again. You know, what would happen is I'd power it on, it would come up with a Nintendo thing just as you saw earlier in the video, and then the screen would go off and that's it. It would do nothing. And at that point it was still powered on. It was like in a crashed state. And I know that because if I connected, it was doing the same thing. If I connected the power thing down here, it wouldn't show the charge indicator. What you'd have to do, or what I had to do, was hold the power button down here for a good 10 seconds or so, and then occasionally I noticed you could hear a click from the speaker down here. It was very light, so you know, you had to listen really carefully to notice it. But that was a clue that it's powered off, and at that point you could either press the power button to do the Nintendo thing and the same thing would happen, or when it's powered off you could actually plug the charge in and it would come up with the indicator here just for about 2 seconds and then it would go off again. It wouldn't boot. So I was convinced it was kind of beyond, which is why I you know, then like I say packaged it up and sent it off to Vince. The crazy thing is, Vince's magic touch there, as soon as he opened it and plugged the charger and stuff, it works. It booted straight up. So yeah, I was maybe a little bit too impatient. There must have been still a tiny bit of moisture in there. There must have been some moisture somewhere. That's all I can think. The thought that did cross my mind is, whilst we cleaned the PCB up super well, the one thing that we didn't do is take the battery out and maybe investigate there's a little PCB on there, isn't there, for charging the battery. So I can't help but wonder if the battery had some moisture and that's, you know, it's dried up. But the one thing that I will point out, and Vince was clear about this, the test, Vince did a number of things to this. I'm not seeing his video yet, so I don't know exactly what he did, but he did some stuff with the Joycons here because there was drift and the buttons weren't working very well, I think, but the buttons didn't go into water, so I think it's just one of these age things. You know, it's been used a lot. The sticks were drifting and they're not self-centering very well. I think he was saying that ultimately the sticks will need replacing. You know, that's something we could look at later if he has a problem with these Joycons. They're quite expensive. Vince was saying they're about £70 a set or something, which is unbelievable. I think the one thing I might have a look at in a minute is, he was saying that the buttons on this one, I think here, don't work or have some sort of delayed reaction. What we need to do, and I'm unfamiliar with this, is put the test thing up. How do you get into it now? So we're going to test input devices, test buttons. Vince also replaced one of the little things in here that make it snap into place, so that's really nice of him as well. But let's just test these ones. Yeah, so the SR look works. Yeah, that left one, look, there, is not doing anything. Sorry, it's not focusing well. Yeah, I think maybe it's just a dirty contact inside there, if I'm honest. Yeah, that one's not. Oh, it is now. Yeah, they just need cleaning up. Just watch. If I press it hard, it works. So, but what you can find is, see like that there? It's registered when pressing it up. When I let go, it then goes click. Yeah, it did it there, when it felt like I was off it when it actually registered. But if you press it, listen, hang on, and then press down, see that? That shows it is the contacts. It's the contacts that are dirty. So I removed the 4 tri-wing screws there, and then the bottom half of it here just pulls away. But can you see we've got some flex ribbons there? I got one here and one down there. So yeah, super fiddly to work on. What I'm interested in here is, you know, this little PCB with the buttons on. So there are a couple of screws. I'm tempted to kind of just hold it in place like that. Actually, just remove those 2 screws to save me disconnecting down here. I should disconnect the power first, but we're just dealing with the 2 buttons here. There's going to be nothing else going to that board there apart from the 2 buttons. Let's just see if we can just unscrew this. Yeah, so you can see it's a bit discoloured here, look, as if it's had a bit of a spill. So I'm just going to inspect this. I need to get some contact glue. I'm not sure if it's got anything over there like a conformal coating, but I need to get some contact glue into those buttons. That should do the trick, I think. So all a bit crazy and unorthodox in terms of the way I'm testing this. I'm actually testing this like this while it's actually on. So you've got to be very careful because you can damage the ribbons super easily. But all I did here was just get a drip of deoxit on the side there, because it looks like there's a little cavity to get under there. It looks like maybe there's a conformal coating. There's something on there, like a piece of plastic or something, but I've done this on both of them. Let me just show you. If I press the right hand one here just very gently, it's working every single time now. So that one's sorted. I did the same thing with this one. Now this one was a bit more stubborn. I had to tilt the board like that for a period of time, but if I press this one now, that one's working as well. Not quite as good as the other one, but I'll be honest, when I first did this, it wasn't registering at all with a little press like that. You can just replace this PCB here, you know, it comes with the little ribbon and everything. You can get a pair of them for like £5. So my suggestion to Stephen, if he's watching this, he could always send these back to me if he wanted me to swap those things over. At the same time, we might be able to replace the stick parts on these as well if they ever needed to be you know, done there. Or you could just get a tri-wing screwdriver, take the 4 screws out, just do what I've done here, remove those 2 screws, disconnect the battery down here. It just pulls up a bit like the battery does in the main Nintendo Switch itself, and then disconnect, you know, I think you'd have to remove the battery to get access to the ribbon thing down here, but then just disconnect this little ribbon and swap it over. So it's a bit fiddly. I wouldn't mind doing that in future if Stephen needed me to do that. Anyway, let's reassemble it again and give it another try. There we are, back together. I've not put the 4 screws in yet, but that was super easy, if I'm honest. It was a bit fiddly with the ribbon, but look, working now. Sweet. The exact same thing. It seems like on the undersides of these there is just a little gap where you could just get a little bit of deoxit like that there, and as I say, leaving it tilted at that angle there and pressing up and down a number of times is what you want to do. So just being very careful here. Let's just press these buttons. Yeah, that's working. No worries. Watch now. No worries at all. So let's just test that one again. Let's press the button on the underside to release it. So there we go. Sweet. Fantastic. So I cut myself off before. What I was saying right at the start there is the battery life. Yeah, Vince had pointed out that the battery doesn't seem to be holding as much charge as it should do, and Vince did go as far as swapping the battery for another known good battery, and it was doing the same thing where it drains a bit quicker than normal. But that seems to be one of the problems that are reported with the Switch, that for no reason at all it could suddenly start draining the battery more than usual. Now I don't know what the brightness settings are on. Let's see if we can see that. I think Vince, yeah, it's on full brightness, look. I think. There's an argument there to say, yeah, well, if it's on full brightness, it's going to drain it quicker. But even still, I think Vince was telling me these should last about 5 hours or something, and this one perhaps isn't. When I got this about, I don't know, an hour and a half ago now, back from Vince, it was on about 70%. You can see it's down to 54. When it charges the battery, if you've had a fault where the power's been shorted or something like that, it can get confused. So it thinks the battery is higher than it actually is, or it isn't, if you see what I'm trying to say. Now, I've seen examples on YouTube where I've seen this would go down by the second. You know, it could be like 53, then 52, 51, 50. Every second it goes down, 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 down to 0. It hangs around like 1 or 2%, and then you can use it for like an hour on 2%. That is because the way that it's monitoring the battery is inaccurate. It's not doing what it should do, really, which is to measure, currents, and it's the amount of power that it puts into the battery. That's how a lot of these things work. When it charges up, it monitors the current and the voltage level, the battery, and then it knows roughly when it gets to 100%, and then it can kind of update the counter here and keep track that way. But what I do know is that it seems to have been bugged, that power indicator. Now, they updated it with some of the updates for this, and it's supposed to be a bit better, but I think that that's what's wrong with this, because there was a point where this was not charging properly at all. I think it's kind of got out of sync with the thing there. So I think what you would need to do, and what Nintendo recommend, is a number of complete charge cycles. So like, charging up to 100%, using it, draining it until almost like it powers itself off. It literally has no more power inside, and then plugging the charger in and just leaving it to charge back up again. And after you've done that for several cycles, in theory, this should get a bit better. Vince did a lot of testing with the dock and stuff as well, and that all works. So yeah, thank you very, very much to Vince. I honestly thought this was beyond. It was a surprise to me when Vince spoke to me the other day and was like, Chris, it's working, but I'm not happy with the battery indicator here. And he did mention he wasn't happy with these buttons either. Yeah, so just testing the sticks here, and as I say, I think Vince played around with these to get these just right. So I've pressed the button on that one, and let's give that one a go. Yeah, so that's good. I'm quite happy with that. So I'm going to leave that playing one of my videos for a little bit, just keep checking on the power level there, and I'll charge and recharge it a few times that way. So on resistance mode, and incidentally, it's the same sort of thing with a drop. If you drop one of these little MLCC, the multi-layer ceramic capacitors, they can fracture, or you can get little damage to them, little cracks and things like that, and they can either short out completely. Sometimes one of the common things Vince has is where one of these caps up here, it's always a check he does. He measures these caps like this here to make sure he's not got short. Sometimes it's the cap, sometimes it's the chip. I've just realised I've got stuff on my hand there, hang on. But they don't always just short. Sometimes you get resistance, and that's the same with liquid damage. With liquid damage, corrosion, stuff like that, they will turn into resistors more often than not, rather than short. But I'll show you. If I measure across here, and bear in mind this is across the supply rail. In fact, it's not showing what it was before. Maybe it is. Let's just leave it there a bit. You can see it's going up, because before it was like a constant 12k. So yeah, it's kind of showing that now, isn't it? Like around 13k, just a bit more. It's climbing. And the reason it's climbing is because you're charging the caps up here. Yeah, so it showed about 13.5k there. I might just ask Vince to measure his, if I can. Finger on there, and if it turned into, I don't know, let's say a 10k resistor, you would feel the heat being burnt off. This is the sort of thing where one of those little FLIR cameras would be super useful, because you would be able to see which area of the board is warm and which isn't. Not feeling any excess heat anywhere. So yeah, my theory is that a little bit of contamination on the top or sides of these caps here would cause some resistance, some extra resistance, because this is across, you know, one of these caps are on the main supply rails. So I did the same thing on the caps around these areas here as well, and up here as well, just very lightly with the fiberglass pen. But I also got a little bit of vinegar, used a toothbrush again, dried it with cotton buds, a bit of IPA, dried it with cotton buds, and then you just saw me finishing off the caps there. But I've got a theory, I think that's going to sort it actually, because I was inspecting that one there in particular under magnification, and I could see like a film across the top of it leading to the dark coloured pin on one side or the other. So I think it was acting as a bit of resistance, and that was ultimately helping drain the battery. So the cleaning of the capacitors and stuff there, that seems to have fixed it. That was the issue. I mean, it could have been getting some vinegar under the little ICs around those areas, because ultimately, you know, vinegar's an acid. So just by virtue of putting some of that on there and giving it a bit of a scrub, it's different to using IPA. If you just clean something like that with IPA, it doesn't have the same effect. The battery life perhaps isn't quite as good, because as I said earlier, I tested it yesterday and I think I was up to about 3.5 hours on one, you know, from one charge, but it's increasing each time, and I think it's just a consequence of you know, the liquid getting in there and shorting out the battery contacts and stuff, and it's probably going to take a number of charges to get back to a reasonably good level. Special thanks to my mate Vince. You know, I was on the phone to him a few times. We were measuring different components. The point where I cleaned things up here just you know, about a few minutes ago, I was on the phone to Vince and I said, can you measure the resistance across one of these caps here? And I was trying to ascertain whether one of the caps had perhaps changed into a, you know, turned into a resistor, but it hadn't. We were getting almost the same readings between his, you know, the board he was working on his bench and this one. So that was really super useful. But it was also useful, you know, me sending this to Vince to start with. Yeah, you could argue that if I just left it another 24 hours, I would have seen it spring to life, and I could have, you know, done the things that I've done towards the back end of this video. But had it not gone to Vince, the sticks wouldn't have been sorted out, because Vince did a load of stuff to the sticks and things as well. I'm not sure exactly what else he did, you know, inside it. Oh, he fixed, I'll tell you what he did do. It was a bodge by me. The memory card reader that goes here, and it has the touch screen, you know, the digitizer stuff, doesn't it? And there's a tiny little PCB that clips in, doesn't it? It's got one of those really awful connectors. And I think when I was reheating the chip at some point, I must have, I don't know, got maybe too near to that little ribbon, and the PCB was ever so slightly warped. Now, I saw that before I sent it to Vince. I mentioned it to him and said, my intentions with that, if you can get this thing to, you know, spring to life at all, would be to maybe heat that just gently, maybe at 150 degrees or 200, something fairly low, and push it flat on a flat surface, and to you know, deal with, because it was like slightly warped, the connector, but it wasn't melted. It was just a slight warp in it. So I'm guessing Vince dealt with that, because I think he was saying the touch screen wasn't working when it first sprang to life for him. I'll post a link down below to Vince's video. Please check his video out. I haven't seen it yet, like I say, but it's like all of the videos he does on the Switch. I think he does a wonderful job. And to echo the point I said earlier on, I have the greatest amount of respect for what Vince is able to do on these. When you watch one of his videos, you may think, you know, the soldering, you may think, oh, I can do a better job than that, you know, he's not trying hard enough kind of thing. You know what? Until you took the back off one of these and actually inspected up close and seen how small the chips and components, the capacitors, they're smaller than a grain of salt. You can't hardly even see them with the naked eye. You've got to use magnification. You can't work on it without magnification. You need some serious magnification to be able to see what you're doing. So yeah, some of the stuff he's done, I am absolutely in awe at, really. And this is the other thing, the other reason I sent this to Vince. You know what, it's one thing to buy something faulty like this yourself and then just dive in. If you make it worse, it isn't the end of the world, it's yours, you bought it. But this belongs to you know, RetroUnlim's lad here. The last thing I would want to do is use this as, you know, a guinea pig for me learning how to repair one of these. So yeah, I think I made the right decision at the right time, really, to send to Vince. But you know what, I could have saved that postage cost if I just waited another 24 hours. So in terms of Vince's time, hats off again to Vince. He didn't charge me anything for looking at this. He didn't even charge me for the return postage, which was really good, because I've been able to pass that benefit on to Stephen. I haven't charged Stephen anything for looking at this either. The only payment, if you like, was for the initial shipping when I shipped it to Vince. And I'll be honest, initially I said, look, I'll fund the cost for this, because I feel a bit guilty of the fact that I said I could have a look at it, and now I'm kind of stumped with it, and I'm having to send it off, so don't worry about it. But Stephen kindly said, no worries, how much was it? I'll sort it out. So yeah, for the cost of postage one way, Stephen has got a fully working Nintendo Switch again for his son. I fully charged it last night after completely draining it for about 3.5–4 hours, so I got really good battery life out of it. It'd gone up by about an hour, and after overnight it only dropped for about 4 or 5%. I think it was just under 100% when I switched it on on standby. And that's the thing, I didn't shut it down completely, I just put it on standby. So that is really good. It's actually holding the power on standby. I don't think it's draining it when it's in standby, and I think it's using less power when it's actually in use. The only way I could tell that, really, well, I don't know, it's probably to remove the fuse and put my meter in current mode and actually see how much current is drawn at any given moment. But anyway, yeah, it's working. Sweet, absolutely sweet. So I think it's 100%. I think it's back as good as new, really. So I left it just over an hour ago on 65%. Now it's kind of gone down maybe by 1% or something. Let's just see. There you go, 64%. So it's 100% in my mind now. It is not doing what it was doing, which is draining, really rapidly when in standby. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you can support the channel, please see the Patreon link down below. Just from a little $1 a month, it means I can continue to keep doing these videos, because Patreon is the thing that funds the channel, really, other than the occasional donation from people. So yeah, thanks very much for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.